Welcome to Advanced TV Herstory. I'm your host, Cynthia Bemis Abrams. This is the place where we connect the dots of TV and feminism to American culture and politics. Welcome to another episode of Advanced TV Herstory. I'm so glad you're here with me today because today is one of those days and I'm feeling really good. You know, we need to do things to remind ourselves what courage looks like. Here it is. It's March of 2025 and I'm looking for inspiration and I think I've found it. Let's talk for a second about what the word legacy means. Now, our fine folks at Merriam-Webster Dictionary would say to us that legacy is something that is transmitted by or received from an ancestor or predecessor or someone from the past. When I think about legacy in the episodes that I've done in the past, I think about Lena Horne, Patty Duke, Diana Ross. Their careers are awesome. Their lives have been absolutely inspirational. And they have transmitted something to me, I hope to you, and that is, wow, it's everything. It's courage. And it's laughs and it's incredible talent. They have shared their souls with us. And so maybe it's a stretch that I am saying to you that Connie Chung falls into that category. But let me tell you, Connie Chung's legacy is there and it is worthy of your consideration. So before we go any further, let me share with you the book, Connie Chung, a memoir. And this is what we're going to be talking about today. I'm no stranger to the Connie Chungs of the world because there have been two past episodes of Advanced TV Herstory that I created for you. One is The Women Who Reported Watergate, and that was a great look at the earliest days of television journalism that was just getting going because Watergate absolutely blew the lid off of what TV could do with something as serious and complicated as the Watergate break-in in 1972, 73, and 74. Leslie Stahl, Connie Chung, and Bernard Shaw were all very key reporters during the Watergate years, as well as who we consider the head of the class of the women, and that was Barbara Walters. It's a really interesting episode. I am very proud of it today, even though I produced it, good golly, 7 or 8 years ago. I also did a different episode, very different, and it included Jane Pauley and Ann Curry. And it's called The On-Air Power of Jane Pauley and Ann Curry. Because unlike Connie Chung and Leslie Stahl, the careers of Jane Pauley and Ann Curry took place more on the traditional Today talk show, and they sort of ended very abruptly and unceremoniously, disrespectfully, just shady. And I hit home on that, and it includes a really excellent book by Brian Stelter. I relied on that a bit, because there were a series of years where those morning TV talk shows, Good Morning America and the Today Show, they were huge. Okay, so Connie Chung and Leslie Stahl and Bernard Shaw, they were very much a product of what we now consider today DEI, but back then it was just simply affirmative action, and that was the opportunity for young people who were not white men to come forward with journalism careers and actually have an opportunity to succeed. And they all three did incredibly well. Really rich careers. Leslie Stahl still on CBS 60 Minutes. The takeaway, one of the biggest takeaways, and one that makes my heart absolutely sing from Connie Chung's memoir, is that representation is very much a part of her legacy. It perhaps is the most important, and I'll explain more in a minute. But another one of her legacies that you will glean from reading her memoir, and this is why I'm telling you, you really have to read it, or listen to it because it's a lot of fun, is that I find her to be confident and yet humble in her storytelling. And that's a little rare when you get to the heights that she had with a career in journalism, television journalism that lasted from 1971, all the way up until the early 2000s. And she experimented a lot with different ways of telling the news and succeeded, for the most part, in them, with the occasional sort of lack of effort from those who were really in a position to either help her succeed or fail. Like many journalists, it certainly appears that Connie Chung had a lifelong commitment to the truth. The last lesson I think that we can all take away from her achievements and her efforts is that she holds the value of tenacity. And obviously, that's a key component. That's a key trait of a television journalist. And it is such a hallmark of why she was able to get so many really good exclusive interviews with people like Magic Johnson. So in her 2024 memoir called Connie, a Memoir, I like it because she's candid. She names names. She tells stories. She recounts some of those tabloid headlines from the 80s and the 90s that put her front and center in the American mindset. But you know what? When she tells the story now with her side, there's a tremendously new meaning. I think you will enjoy that. I absolutely recommend this book. I am a big connoisseur of memoirs, big. And I find that there needs to be that extra layer. Don't just tell me the stuff that you could find from any other third party. I want it right from the head and the heart of the person whose life is being told. It's also understood that Connie Chung kind of waited a long time to tell her story. She found it very difficult to write because she's so much more of a verbal communicator. But there she was in her mid-70s writing this memoir, and honestly, it sounds like somebody who is sharing information that is not normally shared by people who are of that generation. And she uses phrases and a certain familiarity that I found very endearing. Her story it's nothing short of amazing. It's an American story, certainly. She was born to Chinese immigrant parents. Her sisters were also born in China, but she was the only daughter of the family to be born in the United States. And for the most part, she lived her early years in the Washington, D.C., Maryland area. And obviously that influenced her interest in politics and the truth, the spreading of information coming from the government. Her father was at one time a Chinese official and then ended up working for the U.S. government. Throughout the whole story, her whole story, it's very clear that her parents were a big role in her life, clear into her adulthood. And that's yet another value that I'm really glad that she brought forward. It is a part of her story. She did not downplay it at all. She also didn't sugarcoat it. Chung credits this congressman who she worked for in her college years, Congressman Seymour Halpern, who had been a newspaper man, but was then at that time a congressman from New York, with kind of turning her on to what journalism was about. And so in her senior year of college, she had already skipped out of biology as a major. She didn't really like accounting, and so she landed in journalism, which obviously became the fate of the rest of her career, illustrious career. So it's that interest in journalism and finding the truth and finding it in Washington, D.C., where she believed that the government needed to be truthful and needed to be run by truthful people, that brings a level of candor in her storytelling to us. Maybe I'm kind of trying to make this point too many times, but here it is. Because in 2018, she started realizing, and a little earlier than that when she was in college, she had been sexually assaulted from her family physician, who had actually even delivered her. And her memory went from fuzzy to firm during the Senate confirmation hearings for Brett Kavanaugh's lifetime appointment to the U.S. Supreme Court. And she writes about it. And she didn't have to write about it. She didn't have to include this. She didn't even have to get involved in 2018, October of 2018, when she wrote an open letter to Christine Blasey Ford. If I need to remind you where we were 7 years ago, Kavanaugh had been nominated by Donald Trump to fill a vacancy on the U.S. Supreme Court. And Christine Blasey Ford, much like Anita Hill, lo those 27 years earlier, had come forward saying that she had somewhat indistinct memory of knowing Brett Kavanaugh and being the person who he assaulted in their earlier years. So Connie Chung was experiencing that, as we all were in 2018, could not believe that once again you had, this time, women in the United States Senate actively asking him questions about what had transpired, and then asking Christine Blasey Ford as well. So here is what Connie Chung wrote in the Washington Post. She described being assaulted by her family physician when she was in college. And she then does a second part in the Washington Post column. I think the doctor died almost 30 years ago, in his 80s. I've driven past his home office many times, but refused to look at it. Yet, just yesterday, I found the house on Google Maps, and seeing it again, I freaked out. Christine, I too am terrified as I reveal this publicly. I can't sleep. I can't eat. Can you? If you can't, I understand. I am frightened. I am scared. I can't even cry. Will my legacy as a television journalist for 30 plus years be relegated to a footnote? Will she too be etched on my tombstone instead? I don't want to tell the truth. I must tell the truth. As a reporter, the truth has ruled my life, my thinking. It's what I searched for on a daily working basis. Christine, I know the truth as you do. Years ago, my husband read a novel by Rita Mae Brown called 6 of 1. He told me, quote, "There's a great line in this book. The advantage of telling the truth is you don't have to remember what you said." End quote. I wish I could forget this truthful event, but I cannot because it is the truth. I am writing to you because I know that exact dates, exact years are insignificant. We remember exactly what happened to us and who did it to us. We remember the truth forever. Bravo, Christine, for telling the truth. So, the truth is part of Connie Chung's legacy. We need to remember that she stepped forward in 2018, as did many other women. There were so many in those years of the hashtag #MeToo movement and the Brett Kavanaugh hearings, and Connie Chung was one of them. Let me then step back a bit, because this is still a really great and fun read. She is a great storyteller. She talks about early TV news, in a working man's environment that was very fast-paced, and she committed a lot of time to it. She started off her career in Channel 5, which was a Washington, D.C. local station, caught the attention then of the national news, CBS National News Organization, after doing some incredibly great scoops and covering the Nixon White House. She, Leslie Stahl, Bernard Shaw, they were the visible signs that TV news was changing. And so actually she was profiled in a Newsweek magazine, August 1971 edition. The article was called "The New Crop of Female TV Reporters." In her book, Connie Chung includes, and my quote was, "I hate fashion stories. Give me a tear gas, rock-throwing riot anytime." So in addition to that, Connie Chung tells the story of her first meeting with Barbara Walters and subsequent interactions with Barbara Walters. She talks about the door that got opened so that she could join CBS National News. And actually, it was because she was reporting on a restaurant in Washington, D.C. that was violating all sorts of public health and sanitation standards. And it just so happens that an executive from CBS National News was in the restaurant when Connie and her news crew stormed in. Made a big impression. Other highlights that you will get to see or listen to her honestly tell had to do with the male colleagues who didn't want her around and some of the supportive ones who did and helped her career. She talks about learning to understand that men in the profession, as in many professions, as she says, want to either screw you or screw you over. Think about that and think about your own career. She talks about the famous men she partied with when she was working for the big TV station in L.A. And lastly, she talks about the very supportive relationship she's had with her husband, Maury Povich, since they married in 1984 and their relationship before that. Her career has spanned nearly every sort of television news assignment that there is, from light and airy and women's news all the way to international news. She had a short tenure as a national news anchor, which is kind of considered the pinnacle. And it's a pinnacle that has not been held by women for any long period of time. You can expect that the viewership surveys and the ratings and everything else, if there was anything to be used as criticism, that was always brought forward. And I think that that's a consistent account, whether it's about Diane Sawyer, Barbara Walters, Connie Chung, Katie Couric. It's an interesting and fascinating study, and in the end, it gets to be kind of sad. One of the other really big profile interviews that she got, and Connie Chung she got the get. She enjoyed talking and enjoys talking about what it took to get the big profile. She interviewed the captain of the Exxon Valdez. As you may recall, that was a huge headline. It captivated American attention for months and months because this ship had let so much oil directly out into the sea, had done so much damage, and the captain was at fault. She ended up late in her career with a TV series called Eye to Eye with Connie Chung. That never took off. so many efforts that she put her best journalistic instincts forward and it did not pan out. So I can appreciate why she was having a hard time mustering up her legacy. What do I stand for? What did I do? Perhaps while she was in the middle of writing this book, she stepped forward out of the shadows to raise a fist of sisterhood to Christine Blasey Ford and so many other women who were at that time coming forward with their news that had nothing to do with the merits of their career or their thoughtfulness or their commitment to truth. So in 2019, she, out of the blue, gets a random email from a woman named Connie Chung, who happens to be an online features writer. Wang is a Chinese immigrant. She grew up in the Midwest. And at the age of 3, she was asked what she wanted her American name to be. Here's how Connie told it to Kelly Clarkson on The Kelly Clarkson Show on November 12th, 2024. It can be found on YouTube on The Kelly Clarkson Show channel.
And all she knew was what she saw on television. So she said Connie or Elmo.
I think she chose wisely.
I think so.
Yes. Would have been a very different.
What she discovered was there were untold numbers of Asian parents who named their baby daughters Connie.
Yeah.
After me. And I couldn't believe it. It was like, really
Well, you
amazing.
never thought probably the reach or the impact would lead to that, what you were doing. Yeah.
Never. So I went on this book tour, and I met like 6 or 7 more Connies. It was amazing. And I even met a Connie Chung drag queen.
What was that like?
Well, he told me that it takes him like 4 hours to get his makeup on. And I said, hey, dude, it only takes me 15 minutes. Come on.
Yeah.
You got to get
your
with
game.
It. Yeah.
I would never sit somewhere for 4 hours. Oh, my gosh.
No.
So, wait, we actually have a couple of Connies named for Connie with us today.
No.
Who wanted to celebrate the book with you. Could you stand up?
kidding.
So we have a couple here. And even one of our NBC pages is named in honor of Connie.
No way.
Yes. So what does it mean for you to be named after Connie?
Yep, I'm named after Connie, and you are such an inspiration to me because you have broken so many barriers as the first Asian American woman on national news.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. You always remind me to be fearless as well as stay curious. Thank you so much for
Staying curious.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, we need a commercial break.
Listeners, this is why I podcast. I cannot find a greater example of what representation means, what it means for young people to see themselves on TV. And back when I started this podcast, you would have said, well, representation was really mostly about women. And then perhaps it was about a racial component. But now here we are, really starting to understand that there are so many underrepresented people who live every day in this world, who watch TV, who are contributing to society, and yet they never get to see themselves on TV. If you ever have to provide a definition to anybody about what representation is, Connie Chung and the Connies. That's all. It's a great story. It's also a reminder of the impact of our efforts, the day to day that we all do, cobbling together what we think is our best. Maybe every once in a while demonstrating courage, demonstrating savvy that you can get the interview, the tenacity. People are watching. They do pay attention. You might not know it today, but these days we really do need that courage, and we need to recognize that people who have struggled their whole lives do achieve, do overcome, and are smart and good storytellers along the way. So I encourage you to buy or borrow from the library, Connie, a memoir. Many, many thanks to my virtual news production team of Mary Lou Morose and Nivea Lopez. The jingle music, as always, is Jazzers Take Me Higher, and that can be found at freemusicarchive.org. The link for the Kelly Clarkson Show, which I excerpted, is in the show notes, as is a link to the memoir that is from the publisher, Hatchet. But I encourage you to either buy independent or buy local. Go to a bricks and mortar store and spend the money on a book. It's good. And then because you're going to lend it to somebody else who lends it to somebody else, and that these great stories are going to come to others. so much. I have to thank you for listening, for watching, for recommending this podcast to others, for reviewing it, for subscribing to the newsletter. I'm your host, Cynthia Bemis Abrams.